Great to be here with everyone. And I'm a substitute today for Whitney Cathcart, who is our Chief Strategy Officer. And Whitney was called away on some significant business opportunities and asked me to step in. And mass personalization or mass customization is a subject very, very near and dear to my heart. On-demand manufacturing, something I'm very passionate about. And I'll share my opinions as to why it may not have worked in the past, why it is moving forward today, and what the future looks like for mass personalization and on-demand manufacturing. So, sorry about that. I've been involved in on-demand e-commerce starting in 1999. I was recruited to run a tech startup called madeforme.com. And if you can think back to 1999, we weren't doing a lot of e-commerce. There was very little technology to enable people to determine what size they would be. And this company wanted to take the Dell model for computers and apply it to clothing so that you could basically customize product. It would be custom made to fit you, and it would be delivered quickly to your doorstep, and you would just order on their website. It's pre-smartphone, obviously. The problem was that it was founded by an electrical engineer who was a brilliant guy. Together, he and I invented this body scanner after we failed at previous methods of measurement capture. So the one thing about on-demand that I think is really interesting is that it requires this intimate partnership between three very different groups of people. Consumers have to want to buy something on demand, and they have to want to buy something personalized. What we found with Made for Me, which, by the way, was just an abject failure, and we changed the name of the company to IntelliFit and became very successful at collecting data. Instead of trying to make custom clothing back then, consumers had to want to buy it. And what we found with consumers was that the people who gravitated towards this service and this product were people who generally went into stores and couldn't find anything to fit anyway in off-the-rack sizing. So they were the hardest to fit consumers to begin with. And they were the only ones who really wanted to buy something that way. Then there were brands. The brand had to want to participate in this and serve those consumers. And brands, if you think back then, if you think to today, in many cases, they want to stack the racks high and sell as much as they can and mark down what's left. And, that's not what they really were focused on. And then manufacturers have to want to make one at a time. And it took us forever back in 1999, 2000, and 2001 to find people who wanted to set up a production line to make individual garments that were customized, that might be returned if they didn't fit. So it was a challenge. And in the middle of all this, you need enabling technologies. You need to capture measurements or some indication of how a product is going to fit a person's body. There needs to be some customer relationship management capability, PLM. So you need to link those measurements with the product itself. You need to customize patterns for that individual body. And then you need some manufacturing automation. Well, none of that really existed back then. Our measurement capture, when I first joined the company, was a black bodysuit that we sent to people, and they would put it on, and it had little dots on it. And think about the Zozo suit from about 5 years ago. We were way ahead of our time with this, but it was a massive failure. It didn't work. And we realized that very quickly and pivoted the company. But you need this intimate partnership between these three groups. And we recognize intellectually today that, the era of fast fashion has to be left behind for a lot of reasons. First, sustainability. I mean, we throw so much waste into landfills. And the business model itself is just broken. I gave a talk back in 2012 when I was very disappointed as we came out of the 08, 09 recession, global financial crisis. I thought we were going to change as an industry. We were going to move away from this design something 2 years in advance, produce massive amounts of it, put it in stores, hope it sells, and then mark down whatever's left or ship it to another country. And we didn't change. The model that was broken then in 2008 was still broken when we came back in 2012. And to a large degree, on a mass scale, it's still broken today. We're not learning our lessons. That old model was, it was manufacturing for hope. We were hoping that these products that we would design well in advance of consumer demand, we were predicting what they were going to want to buy 18 to 24 months in advance and just hoping that it would sell. Those long lead times, those huge order volumes, the waste involved, no flexibility or agility, and we use generic fit. And I think we all know that generic fit is long past its shelf life at this stage of the game. So today, fast forward, we're seeing consumer preferences driving growth in this category. If you think back to 20 years ago, there were basically 3 categories of product that you could get on demand and you could get customized to your personal fit. 2 of them, the largest 2, were in menswear. So men's made to measure or bespoke suitings were number 1. Number 2, men's dress shirts. You could go to a tailor and get fitted and measured, and you could get a custom dress shirt. That was a niche business, but it was a relatively large niche business in menswear. And then women couldn't get anything like that. You couldn't get a custom suit. You couldn't get an on-demand blouse, but you could get a wedding gown. So the bridal category was really the only category where we saw on-demand for a product category in apparel. Today, really thanks to a number of innovative startups focused on Gen Z consumers primarily, but appealing to a broad range of consumers who are concerned about sustainability, concerned about something unique and custom that's theirs alone, are fueling this growth. And we think the category will be about $112 billion, still a fraction of the market, but 112 is a significant number by 2024, and it's growing at about a 20% clip annually. So we're grateful to see the movement in that direction. So this new model includes some level of personalization. If you think back to personalization, Nike and Adidas Group 15 years ago began producing on-demand customized footwear, and to this day continue to do that. But it's standard sizing. It's not customized fit. It's customized features and colors to the product styling. Personalization means more to consumers than that today. It means fit. It means it's got to flatter me. It's got to appeal to my preferences. All of those are really critical things. Consumers are more focused on sustainability than they ever have been. The entire debate about U.S. leaving the Paris Accord and hopefully coming back into the Paris Accord has really awakened a lot of consumers, even older consumers, to the issues relative to sustainability. And I think with COVID, we've seen a real shift in shopping habits, not just more e-commerce. I'm embarrassed to say, our carbon footprint here has gone up significantly because of all the cardboard boxes being delivered daily to our house. And again, embarrassed to say that, but less is better. We're finding that people are willing to invest in product that will last longer. So smarter production, smaller batches, it's more cost efficient, and it gives us a lot of flexibility if we think about it. So the business model makes a lot of sense. So what's happening behind the scenes? Well, there's demand planning and forecasting that has to go on. The one thing about on demand, that the only reason it works, and it works in today's environment, is somebody has to invest in at least fabric inventory. There's a great on-demand model with Nimbly. I think Kurt Cavanaugh spoke earlier today, where there only needs to be yarn sitting there in inventory, and product is custom knit to order. I think that's a fabulous model. But for most people making apparel, they need raw materials. I'll give you a couple of examples coming up. But so there needs to be some demand planning and forecasting, even in an on-demand world. You need to get the shopper's measurements. You need to find a way to do that measurement capture. You need to simulate and potentially do 3D prototyping to verify, yes, this is going to fit this person. And there are a lot of questions about visualization and imaging, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, and I'll take some questions on that because back in the day when we changed our company from madeforme.com to IntelliFit, we decided that we were going to scan people, collect data, and only tell them what size was going to fit them well in what brand. And we weren't going to show any images, weren't going to collect any images. We collected a point cloud. So there was, and once that size recommendation was collected, that point cloud was destroyed. So, we think that model exists today because there's still a lot of concerns about privacy. And then setting up with a product lifestyle management system so that vendors, manufacturers have the same data that you have, and you're going to accurately create a product that the consumer wants. So a couple of great examples, Laws of Motion. Carly Biggie in New York founded this company focused on custom fit women's wear. There are a lot of, as I mentioned, menswear companies that are focused on custom fit, but not a lot in women's wear. And she has done a great job and also has a great charitable arm to her business, helped out with PPE last year, but giving people, getting some information from consumers and then being able to customize a product to fit their body exactly, and doing a great job of that. One of my other favorite stories, Matt Hornbuckle. I met Matt, 5 years ago. He started a company called Stamp. They have 99 sizes. They're tackling the fit problem by increasing the number of SKUs that they have, but they're making product on demand. So if I go to their website, I put in a couple of measurements. I get my size recommendation, which, by the way, the 99 sizes each one is named after a street in New York City. I'm a Essex size, and I have a friend who's Central Park, so you can imagine how big that is. But once you place your order, that order goes into a production queue for a low ply or single ply cutter in a factory in San Pedro Sula in Honduras. The factory keeps about 300 plus shirt fabrics on hand to be able to quickly produce that product. So it gets cut within a day of ordering, and there's no waste involved, and it gets delivered within 4 or 5 days back to your home by DHL. So I tried it 5 years ago when I heard about it and have been a big fan ever since. The challenges, though, is that we're getting anecdotal information from consumers in many cases about either their body shape, about their measurements, and consumers are terrible at estimating those things. They can't even estimate their weight properly. So, we believe at 3D Look that we need more accurate data. And the way to get that is using that 3D technology at the front end to do measurement capture. A simple front and side photo, and we can extract a significant amount of information. And going back to those old scanning days of mine, we were focused on scanning fully clothed people. And the technology we used was millimeter waves, basically the same technology you use when you go through an airport scanner today. And we were able to get accurate measurements using that technology. Fast forward to today, by the way, those are huge, expensive, totally impractical. That's why they don't exist today. But everyone has a smartphone. So using 3D Looks technology is an excellent way to get measurement capture. Feed that information into a 3D design and pattern making software, and then feed it into a factory set up for modular manufacturing or automated manufacturing. Those are really critical steps. So how does the technology work? Well, it's patented. It measures fully dressed people, high degree of precision of accuracy in seconds. The neural nets behind the scene were trained on a proprietary data set. And we have a proprietary tech stack that's vertically integrated. So the technology basically creates a point cloud, like we did back in the day, creates a 3D model of that individual, and then extracts from it about 80 measurements. Now, for most size determinations and most, even for custom or made to measure product, you only need 5 to 10 measurements, but we're building a great database of individuals, which will, the data is collected anonymously and aggregated. So there'll be the ability to do consultation on fit going forward, much like I've done for the last 20 years. Quick case study, a women's apparel brand based in San Francisco called Red Thread has been using our technology for 2 years now. And they can get a person to take a front and side photo of themselves. And 7 days later, they get a custom-made product. They have tripled their sales in the last 2 years because of the increase in interest in on-demand. They have extremely low return rates because of the accuracy of the technology. And they're getting product to a consumer within 7 days of ordering. You know, one of the things that was a drawback to on-demand back in the day, back 20 years ago, and to this day, it's still it's a speed bump, is that some consumers want instant gratification. They're not willing to wait 3 to 5 days, 7 days, 2 weeks. So that's an issue that I think people in the COVID era are starting to think differently about that. Of course, I'm willing to wait a couple of days if I can get something really special. Another great case study, we integrated the technology with a company called Burlington Medical, large healthcare uniform manufacturer. We integrated not only with their employees, but with Salesforce, the CRM system, where the photos we collected went into the CRM system, went through an API to Salesforce, and then exported to Gerber. So Gerber's AccuMark made-to-measure application was fed the measurements so that custom apparel could be produced for Burlington Medical. 67% drop in return rates. We've been doing work with them for over a year now. We've collected 3,000 scans. There's 0 human error. So we were very, very pleased with how that went. So if we go back to that early slide where we had that triumvirate of consumers, brands, and manufacturers, fast forward to today or tomorrow. But in the current scheme of things, consumers do have that demand. And it's not just people who are hard to fit. Consumers want something that's made for them. They understand the sustainability issues. Brands are catering to that. And not just the big brands, but all the direct-to-consumer startups that have creative ideas and are using creative technologies to solve a consumer's fit problem or aesthetic problem. And manufacturers. There's more and more automation going into manufacturing. So today we have the ability, with those enabling technologies in the middle, to go from consumer to customized product made on demand very, very quickly. And I think in the future, we're going to see this happen and accelerate even more. In a previous panel, someone said, I don't think we're going to see this 5 years from now become mainstream, and I agree with that. But 50 years from now, we'll look back and wonder, why did we make things that way 50 years ago? So we will get there. With that, I'd be very happy to open it up for questions.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, there's been a few coming in and some really, really interesting points you made. I certainly think you're not alone. You're not on your own by a long stretch when it comes to the piling up of cardboard boxes. You know, I think we're all in the same boat when it comes to that. Let's get into the questions. Do you think it's better to say that we are getting the customer shape with measurements instead of measurements first?
Getting the customer, I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Do you think it's better to say that we're getting the customer shape with measurements instead of just saying we're getting the measurements first? Is the question? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're intricately connected. So one of the things that we do with the data is parse it into body shapes. So some people want to use the application, the 3D look application, just to determine what's their best fitting size off the rack. So for e-commerce, putting them into buckets of body shape allows us to understand exactly how a particular size will fit them. But the measurements are key, and measurements are not existing in a vacuum. They're related to each other. So we really look at the bust to waist differential, and we look at body depth in terms of front to back balance. We look at waist to hip differential. So a lot of those are body shape characteristics that will help us determine that this person is not a size 6. They're really going to be more comfortable in a size 8. So shape and measurements are totally connected.
Thanks. Graham was asking, he was curious where the 30% number comes from with regards to custom clothing by 2025. Is that a prediction, or is there some data behind that?
I think that's a prediction. That's a number that Whitney put together as she was preparing this deck, and I don't have a source on that, but if I get an email address or something, I can pop the source to whoever asked the question after the session is over.
100%. Graham, I'd suggest trying to connect with Ed within the platform, and if you connect, you guys can share each other's contact details that way. Next question's from Mark. How does one get access to this technology? What are the costs? Broad question, but could you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. Currently, 3D Look is operating in a with about 40 or 50 different brands, with a particular focus right now on the uniform industry. So it's a B2B solution. So a brand or a manufacturer will come to 3D Look, adopt the technology, and their end users will use the technology to determine the best fitting size, or in the case of one retailer, create made-to-measure products. So I'd be happy to discuss with anyone how they can get access to the technology. There is I believe it's basically software as a service fee per use. But again, happy to discuss that offline. Okay.
All right, good. You made an interesting point about how long people are willing to wait for something special. Do you think, it's always something special in the product, but also there's something enjoyable in the process of buying clothes now? I mean, for instance, an enjoyable avatar creation process, or even the customization process. Do you think that people will be willing to wait longer if they have a better experience purchasing that product?
I think so. The other side of that coin is that we're in the Amazon age where, I expect I buy something this morning, it's going to be delivered in an hour. So there's that one level of expectation. But if I'm buying something special, I think my expectation is different. The question is, what is the sweet spot for that? I don't think it's 2 weeks. I think it's a matter of days. I think we're going to get to a point where the technology will be such that 10 or 15 years from now, we'll be using technology to 3D print a product that we want to wear that day. And then when we're tired of it, we can recycle it and 3D print that material into another product. Instant gratification is the key. That's the holy grail. And we're going to move slowly, but we're going to move to instant gratification because I think that's how human nature is.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're going that way, whether it makes sense or not, but we certainly are going that way. Another question from the audience is, body scanning was invented in 1989, and given that the fundamental design of scanners has not changed significantly for many years, despite evidence that it should, may I ask what your perspective is on the customer experience?
Well, the first generation of body scanners were laser and white light optical scanners, and they required a person to undress. Not very user-friendly. The next generation, when we created the IntelliFit scanner, we used millimeter wave technology, which basically goes right through clothing, and we could create a point cloud through the skin. And we found people very willing, anxious to get scanned. We put these in Levi's stores all over the world, and there was no hesitation. People love to figure out in 10 seconds what size is going to fit them best, what style was going to fit them, their body shape the best. The problem was it was huge, it was expensive, and it took up too much retail space. So it was impractical to scale on a large level. Jump forward to today, there's a whole generation of scanners that are turntable scanners. I've seen people fall off of turntable scanners. Not a pretty sight. I don't think body scanners are the future. I think we're seeing the end of the era of body scanners because of technology like 3D look. So if you're able to use your smartphone to solve whatever problem you'd be solving on a body scanner, you're solving it with your cell phone. That it's frictionless to the consumer, and I think that's really where we're going to go in the future. I don't think that the traditional body scanners have any place in the future, unfortunately, and I was always a big proponent.
Yeah, interesting. Another question that's come in is it more realistic to think that on-demand manufacturing will solve the issue of fit instead of trying to achieve standardization across thousands of brands and retailers? What impact will this have on consumer buying habits if stores continue to sell clothes that are still sized differently?
So there will never be standardization across brands. Every brand has this conceit that they think they're unique and special. At Alvenon, where I was for a dozen years, we helped develop the ASTM standards. We helped develop the EU sizing standards, the China sizing standards, and would try to convince people that if they use the standard, it was probably going to fit more people than if they use their proprietary fit. And almost to a brand, they would say, no, our customer is special. They're unique, and they're not generic, they're younger, or they're older, or they're skinnier, or they're wealthier. And so based on that, they would all tweak their fit. And so I can tell you that out of hundreds and hundreds of brands that we worked with, their fits are all slightly different. And that's what consumers see when they go into the store. I do think that on-demand will solve the fit problem as it begins to penetrate the market. I think we're still a long way away. While I believe we're growing at about 20% in on-demand, not all of that is customized fit. So there's a subset of that where we have customized fit. And that's where technology really needs to be embraced moving forward to enable that customization. You have some technologies like Gerber's MTM system, which can alter a pattern according to a measurement that they receive. That's great. More and more people need to invest in that. More people need to invest in the front end. How do I, in a frictionless way, get that consumer's body measurements? And how can I translate that into an appropriate pattern adjustment for that person?
Mm. Well said, Ed. And look, thanks for your time today. It's been really, really insightful. I know that there are a couple more questions there as well. So again, I'd encourage people to either drop us a line at the Apparel booth, or you drop Ed a line directly. There you go. If we can share Ed's slides, if they're still on screen, let's get those up so everyone can just reach out to Ed directly with any further follow-ups. I know you're always really willing to chat about this stuff. So thanks again, Ed, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Great to be with all of you. Thank you.